Well, COVID really helped with this in some way.
Not in JobNimbus, it never happens.
Actually, when I got on JobNimbus, I could get rid of half that stuff. We could never get it started after that because it's sort of tainted, you
know. Apple or Windows?
Apple all the way, man.
All three?
Yeah.
I've seen some Windowses there.
Yeah.
We're working on getting rid of them and converting them.
Apple's like the only company that still cares about privacy, like at least somewhat, you know.
So Windows is all compromised?
Well, they just don't care about it. Yeah.
Right? Like when's the last time you heard about a big virus or something on a Mac?
It's funny because most IT guys, they're just so pro Windows. They're like, oh, you can do so much on Android and all of that. And I'm like, I'm Apple guy to the core.
Yeah.
Glad to hear that. Tell me, guys, your story. You're the founders of JobNimbus?
Yes. Yeah.
All three of you. How did you all came about together?
So we've actually worked on several companies in the past together. So
What kind of companies?
we did a consulting company that was software consulting, so it built complex software projects for different businesses. It's actually how this idea came about for JobNimbus, was through a friend of a friend that we met through that. We can talk about that in a second. Before that, Jason and I worked on a security software company that I ran together. And we even had a couple other things. We had a music-related company that we did in the past. We're kind of serial entrepreneurs. We've done a lot of companies over the years. Some failures, some really big successes, some in between, you know.
You learned in all of them.
What failed?
Okay. The music company was a total disaster. This was basically a Spotify about 5 years before Spotify came out. I had some connections in the music industry. I'm really passionate about music. We had a great app. We had, how many users did we have on
We had over 1 million.
We had over 1 million users on our app.
Your app has over 1 million users.
Yep. Users
Wow.
on a daily basis using this. And it was a plug-in to iTunes that would let you, see a bunch of cool stuff and get recommendations on new music and that sort of thing. It's actually maybe too early in the market, like we probably were a little bit early, but the biggest problem was that we raised a bunch of capital from an investment firm, and then they were raided by the federal securities the day before we got funded from them. Turns out they were doing a bunch of fraud. We had no idea, it's just a private equity type fund and venture fund. And so we had a bunch of money into that thing and people already moving and setting up. And we could never get it started after that because they're sort of tainted, We spent like a year trying to raise new money and it wasn't working. And so we pivoted to a new thing because you had to raise money to do that one. There was no way to do that without some capital.
You said you were too early. Is it such a thing to be too early in the tech space?
What I mean by that is record companies were still selling CDs and were still making money the old way, and they hadn't seen the future of digital, where we were saying that's where everything's going is digital. And so it was going to be really hard for us to convince a lot of these record labels to start putting their stuff out. Luckily, Apple showed the way with iTunes and then with Apple Music later and Spotify coming out. And now it's like everybody just accepts it, even including the record labels, that that's how things are done. But at the time, this was 9 years ago or something like that? Yeah, it wasn't really the thing yet. They didn't believe, they didn't see.
Maybe you could have bridged the gap with some funding, but
Yeah.
What do you think about Joe Rogan purchase? Spotify deal, 100 million, right?
Yeah. Well, I know a lot of people that's the only show they like to listen to, or one of the few.
You think they're gonna move to Spotify now from YouTube?
I wouldn't
Just
be
a thing?
surprised. I don't know. I think it was a pretty big deal, actually.
I think it's smart for them.
Yeah.
Game changer for sure.
Yep.
What's your definition of CRM? In the plain words. For me,
it stands for customer relationship management.
no,
right?
I know that. How do you explain? For me, it's dropping the balls management. Like everybody drops the balls in the company, and you want to catch, not to be under fire all the time. What solution? What's number one solution you guys solve? Because I know a lot of roofers who sign up for CRM for different reasons. Some companies want to grow sales, some want a better customer service, and actually, I think less companies sign up for customer service issues, usually it's team management.
Yeah.
What do you see JobNimbus does more, team management or customer service management?
It's definitely more on the team management side of those two. If you wanted to define what we do for a company, it's that we help them grow. That's what we found time and time again. You get on a CRM, and here's the problem. You're running your business, usually really good at your trade, sometimes not quite as good at scaling up the business. And so you get to a certain revenue level and you kind of get stuck there, right? And then you come in with JobNimbus, and that's like rocket fuel to take you to the next level, because it enforces good business practices. It gets your whole team accountable. It gets everybody on the same page. It stops leads from slipping through the cracks. And so it's this rocket fuel that just grows you so much faster. That's why when we did the big survey with our customers, a year and a half ago or something, that said 43% more revenue in the first year when you get on JobNimbus on average. And we're just like, oh man, that's what we really do, is grow you.
You mentioned scaling company. Do you have a feel for the perfect size? Who are your best clients? Is it $5 million companies, $7 million companies? I see, I do consult a lot. I have a lot of students too. I see one of the best sizes for me is 3 to 5 million. That's where they don't have too many employees. They're very profitable. I see a lot of companies getting in trouble, 7, 8. I see a lot of good companies at 25 million. What do you feel like is a perfect roofing business side from like less headaches maybe? Because I feel like it's completely different requirement for the CRM at different levels. Like $5 million, $25 million comes completely different request for you. So how does it change on the CRM?
We kind of group it into 3 categories. There's like the 1 to 2 employee company that's usually under $1 million, usually under $500,000, right? And they haven't even figured out how to start scaling yet. A lot of times they're the ones doing the sales, they're subbing stuff out, chucking the truck type situation.
Do they even need CRM?
Well, this is the thing. A lot of them are dreamers and want to be that better company, but they don't even know where to start. So we've got sort of a quick start program for those really small guys to get going and get to something that's really, impressive over time. The sweet spot is definitely like that 3 employee to call it 25 employee, which just sees the biggest growth the fastest because they're ready to scale, but they don't know how to do it, and then implement the software and boom, they go much, much further. And then we have some really, really big companies. I think our biggest company has over 500 users with us right now. So those guys have a whole different set of problems, and they're not usually trying to scale. They're usually trying to get accountability. They're usually trying to get infrastructure in place. And they get kind of a special higher touch for us. So we've tried to gear those 3 levels some solution for each, so that we don't have to say, no, you're not for us. But of those 3, we see most of them. Now the funny thing, if you're just talking roofing, the 3 to call it 25 employee company is the most common in roofing. It's like 90% of all roofers are in that range. So that's why I think we see so much success.
What size gets in trouble the most? Where's the chaos? The most chaotic size? How many users? How many?
What do you guys think?
If you would have to guess, based on your experience.
It seems like as soon as you start getting to, multiple sales reps trying to coordinate scheduled jobs for a handful of sales reps, that's when you start running into maybe missed appointments. You said dropping the ball, things slipping through the cracks. That's a phrase that we hear from like almost every new customer we talk to. Just help us. We need to help you. We need you to help us stop things from slipping through the cracks. And so it's when that level of coordination, team communication kind of becomes a challenge that we see the biggest benefit.
I feel like if you figure out how to do 5 million efficiently as a size, after that it's just a numbers game. If you can manage 5 sales guys, obviously you have 3, 4 people on the team, so you're talking about 10, 15 users. If you run that efficiently, it's numbers game, and now you 6, 7, 10 millions, it doesn't matter, just add sales guys. At what point do you feel like something dramatic have to change in a structure? Like, for example, I talked to AFCA Roofing recently, $22 million companies, and they're trying to go 20 plus, and Heath told me it's completely different restructure. Like what was working before doesn't work anymore. So what kind of struggles those companies have? So I feel like from 5 to 15, just you go from 5
It's a
sales
scale
guys.
thing
It's
right
a
there.
scale.
Yeah.
But when problems begins, and how do you help bigger companies like that who has 500 users? What kind of issues you run with them? Because obviously they didn't get there without a process. They have a process. What solutions you offer them, and
The problem you start getting into is that you start getting these higher level business problems. I see, like, well, how should we set up the company? Sure, one founder or owner can kind of handle up to, call it 30 employees if they're really running things right. After that, things start falling apart unless you set up the right management structure. Well, how do you compensate those people? Which roles should you be hiring for? How do you even hire those right people? There's a whole new set of problems that you didn't even think about when you were under 15 million or something like that, right? You look at your whole HR structure, look at your financing. Well, we're gonna have to do accounting totally different now because our QuickBooks won't scale if we do multiple locations. We've got to have different QuickBooks for different groups. Or we want to set up a franchise model. Well, that's a whole different problem that you're trying to set up now, right? And it's cool ideas and go for it, but you need tools to be able to solve those problems. And you have to think differently. It's weird. Every time you think you got your business figured out, then you hit another inflection point and you got to change everything or a lot of it to get to the next stage, right?
do you have a lot of franchise models where you have several locations?
Yeah, we have a lot of customers with multiple locations, and several of them run
How do you
franchise.
manage that? Do you copy and paste all your process from this location to that location? You start it over?
What we've done is build a bunch of tools into the software that let them filter by location so they can use the same workflow, but then filter to say, I only want to see the Minnesota location, or I only want to see the Colorado location, or whatever. And then it takes the same steps and the same boards and just shows you the jobs for that area. Or I want to see an aggregate of everything. It shows you all of them at once.
Let's talk about pricing evolution. I spoke with you like 3 years ago.
Yes.
At that time, you
Yes.
were $25.
Hasn't
a
been
use.
that long. That's crazy.
I think it was
Yeah.
3 years.
Wow.
And at that time, you were the cheapest solution. I see now you have $35 and you have $75
Yeah.
option. Guide me through tiers and what do roofers get with the different tiers?
So we came into the market at 25. We built our profitability around that. We thought, a lot of people complained when we first started 7 years ago about, like, this software is really expensive and doesn't do a lot of stuff when they talked about our competition, right? So we said, well, let's give a lot of value for that price. And we kept that $25 price, and in fact, we still have it today, all the way through that next 7 years of developing the product. Well, we added tons of stuff and got way ahead on most of our competition on most features. And at that point, we looked back and we started getting feedback from bigger companies who were saying, I didn't even look at you guys because you were so cheap it worried me, Like, oh boy, okay, that's an interesting one. We didn't think about that, And we also got the feedback of, well, but I only want these features, not this, and it's an all-inclusive thing, so it's just 25 for everything or nothing, So we designed out a 3-tier plan so that we could have an entry-level basic price that's 25, like we still have. We could still honor that in the market even to today. It's so cheap, by far the best price in the market to get into the software and get value out of it. And those 1 to 2 user companies, a lot of them start at that place, And then the Pro is where you're starting to get into, I want to do some stuff that's pretty impressive with this. I'm trying to scale my company. You've got QuickBooks and all these other extra features you can add on in Pro. And then Advanced for those people that say, I've been stuck at the same revenue for X number of months or weeks or years or whatever, or I'm on a rocket ship, I want to go as far as I can, then get on Advanced because it has every single feature. It's for the pros, it's for the people that are really serious about scaling, and then we'll take you to the next level. So we kind of got something for everybody right now.
So you added the price because people were not buying from you because you were too cheap.
They didn't take us
And
seriously.
that's one of the reasons.
That's the lesson from JobNimbus, and I agree with you 100%. As a matter of fact, recently I have a lady called me from Florida, and she wanted to hire me to consult her. I said, I don't do consulting. Used to do, I would charge a couple $1,000s. I would fly. I don't do it anymore. You can sign up for my school, $500 a month, and you can get on calls with me. You can see all my online content. And so she asked me, so I can get a call with you every week for 30 minutes. I'm like, yes, you can. And then she replied, "You're too cheap. I was willing to pay like $1,500 for it." And I said, "I don't care. I'm not a money-driven person. I provide value. It's a lot for me. I'm doing really well. I'm not cheap. I'm not giving it away for free, and I get that feedback a lot. So I understand it. Like, people don't like cheap stuff.
Yeah.
And nobody gets it.
So we just figured out a way to add more value into those other things to make them worth paying more for too. So
absolutely love it. Raise your prices, guys. Let's talk about your competition. What's your market share now? Are you like number 1, number 2, number 3? You don't want to talk about it? Talk to me.
We think we're number 1. All of our competition, we're all private, right? So you can't go and look at everyone's financials, but based on the numbers, you go and look, for example, on review sites, who has the most reviews, who's the best, most well-reviewed.
Who has the most searches online? There's lots of those anecdotal things.
So as we go and look around at all the different external data sources, we come out on top. So that's the best we can tell.
I have a very personal question. Is it possible to go paperless in a roofing business? Like, absolutely paperless. I have a war in my office. Like, I have people printing pictures. I have people printing emails. Like, my assistant would print email, and I would come to I'm like, there's no better way to offend me.
Wow.
You literally just print email, so I reply to it. So,
wow.
like, people just, especially if you're in insurance restoration, you're talking about a supplementer, like they deal with the claims, and other day I walked in, they printed pictures from JobNimbus where you can see the screen, it was like screenshot of JobNimbus interface.
Yeah.
I'm like, what is this? Like, how are you going to use it? How is it helping you to be efficient?
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible to be absolutely 100% paperless?
Seems like there's still some things that
With technology?
It's a big goal for us.
Yeah.
We're always working on this every day. We think we're really close right now, if not there, with a lot of companies.
Do you have printers here in the office?
We have one.
You have
It's
one?
for our accountant because we have to print out certain things by federal law.
Yeah, it's to the point where, like, some of our customers will ask us to build features that make things more printable, right? And like, we're not going in that direction. You need to learn the right way to do it, right? There's more efficient ways of doing things. So we're pushing hard in that direction. I think the biggest challenge is just people's mentality,
Exactly. So it's all training.
Yeah.
Mhm.
My team, they just love sticky notes, and I train them. Now. Like, you want a sticky note? You want to get information to me? Take a picture of sticky note, send it to me. I'm not gonna lose it. I'm gonna lose the sticky note 5 minutes later.
Yeah.
But people like sticky notes. They like notes. I like thank you letters. That's the only thing I like.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's personal. You can't substitute that.
But companies that leverage more digital and less paper, they have fewer things slipping through the cracks.
Exactly.
They tend to scale more easily.
They have
So-
visibility on everything.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Accountability.
I want to
Yep.
manage my company from anywhere in the world.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm on vacation, I log in, I see everything. I can't see sticky notes on my board or
Yeah.
printed email.
Yeah. Well, COVID really helped with this in some ways because it got people that were so used to doing everything on paper to have to rethink things because there was no way to do it on paper. You couldn't go to the customer site in a lot of states, right? And so we had a lot of customers coming to us during COVID and even now still saying, okay, I finally see, I got to go digital, right? I got to get off paper finally. And our tool set was like perfectly positioned to say, here's how you can do a sale without ever going to the house right now. You can collect your payment remotely. You can send them the contract digitally, everything,
I've been in a few offices who just transitioned to JobNimbus, and I want to talk about nightmares switching from one CRM to another. Is it even worth entering all the data? I was at AFCO with Heath, and literally one person dedicated just entering data. And when I switched to JobNimbus, I'm like, screw it. It feels like other CRM companies make it impossible to transfer the data, how it's all imported. Do you recommend entering all the data or start fresh? So let's say you've been with other company for 3 years and you switch CRM. Do you need all the data? I mean, is it worth or?
Jason ran our data migration team for a while. We do have our own internal team to help you with your data. So maybe you could answer this one because you're probably really familiar with the problem.
Yes, so some of the data is definitely worth transferring. Definitely the high level data about the homeowners, the photos, notes can be transferred. Some of the data is a little trickier, so it just depends. And we'd say if you have, if you can make that transition to where you can just start in the new system and start using it correctly, and have some of the old data accessible, but just for reference, make that transition the priority, and then figure out and decide if you want to spend some time, if it's worth it to bring stuff in. But just going for a little bit of time without it, often people will find that it's just not as important as they thought it was.
I agree 100%. It's just, I found it's very hard to export, and you pretty much have to do it individual, like pictures from a lot of CRMs. In my experience, you have to do them individually. So if you have 75, 80 pictures per job, I mean, try to download and upload to 100 jobs. It's too much work, and I couldn't justify it. My business, we start from scratch.
It's a nightmare. None of our competition obviously wants to make it easy for us to move data from them, and we actually, I think, make it really easy. You can download almost everything out of our software because we don't care. We think you should be here because you want to be here on JobNimbus, not because your data's stuck here and you're sort of stuck on a contract. Sure. That doesn't sound like a value proposition I'm interested in, you know? So we're not into data lock-in. We want you here because you love it, not because you're stuck on it. Anyways, we invested super heavy this year, 2020, in a data migration team, built it out. I think it's really impressive what we got right now, and we can help you move your data from almost any platform. And so you don't have to hire somebody to type it in. We'll help you move it over. We'll consult with you. We have a lot of experience moving data all around. So we finally have a good solution on this that we never had before. It's always been a problem.
Let's talk about migration and why people move from one software to another. It's really weird for me because I deal with so many contractors. Right. I have so many comments from, IQ-Links to you, from you to IQ-Links, and vice versa. Then you have, like there's so many platforms or CRMs, and it's not like I don't see the trend. That's my problem. If I see the trend that people usually from here to like job progress, or from job progress to here, but I see traffic from in all direction, from job progress to JobNimbus. Like if you put all of them here, I have people from moving from each direction, and I can't understand it. Why do you think people are moving? Is it personal preference, or maybe because they're like, my theory is whoever signed up first, like whether with you or them, they were not ready for the CRM to get organized in the first place. They burned there, and then now they learn a couple lessons, maybe don't want to admit it, that it was their issues, they go somewhere else, and now it's perfect here. I don't know, what's your theory? Why there's so much movement?
Definitely some false starts like that for sure, yeah. Well, everybody has different feature sets, and here's the thing. If you need software, you don't a lot of times know. More than 50%, let's just talk roofing, more than 50% of the industry is still using pen and paper or Excel to run their business. Not one of our
More
systems.
than 50%.
More than 50%.
Biggest risks of running CRM for business owners. Like I feel like you have the leverage, so I'm giving you all my data, all my information. Worst case scenario, what can happen?
Yeah.
Like obviously you store your data on Amazon, but pretty much you have, like if you go out of business, something happened to you, everybody, I mean like data is everything for the businesses. Yeah. What kind of risks do we have trusting you our data?
So vendor lock-in, we already talked about that, right? There are some companies who you give them your data and they for all intents and purposes hold it hostage by making it really hard to get it out, right? So we have our public API. We don't hold data hostage. So that's one thing. You can get your data out once it's in. You can pull
download
it off
any report you want.
Yeah, and you can pull the data off on a regular basis if you want, just for your own peace of mind if you want. Now we put our data all over in secure areas, right? So we have we have all of the data that comes into JobNimbus gets backed up numerous times in multiple regions in the United States, and like
How much data are we talking about?
a lot.
A lot.
Yeah, a lot, like terabytes and terabytes of data, and just hundreds and hundreds of millions of records. So, and we get just a ton of data streaming, and that's why we rely on AWS as kind of our backbone infrastructure. They've got a massive network, massive storage capabilities, so like we can scale as big as well.
So there's no risk in losing data. Would you say it's safer to do it this way versus old way, like papers?
Absolutely.
Office
Sure.
Absolutely.
Your
You
computers?
can have a fire at your office. You can have like, you know, let's say you're storing your information on a hard drive at your office. It's not as safe as it is with us, right? We have multiple copies on redundant drives. If you lose that data on one drive, that drive goes bad, it's gone, right? So I think it's safer.
Okay. My next question is, roofers go out of business all the time.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago, 10 years ago, I was cutting grass. And I remember coming to this landscaping supply. I was buying like grass, sod, whatever. And I remember owner of the place took me to her wall of fame, wherever it was, a whole bunch of business cards. And she told me this. I asked her if I can put my card there. So she puts my card on the wall, and she said, Dmitry, do you see this wall? It's like hundreds of cards. Like every year I come here, I remove all of them, and I restore about 20% of them. That's
Wow.
how many
Wow.
businesses go out of business. And you have 90% of roofers out of business in the first 5 years. Everybody knows it. I would say 50% of them go out of business in 2 years. On your end, on the CRM, how often do you see roofers go out of business calling you? It's like, hey, I'm out of business, gonna close the account. How often does it happen? Or
It's our number one reason for people leaving, is they went out of business. And frankly, we're going to solve that problem. So we've got some really cool stuff happening right now to help people, because what we've realized is that even if you get a CRM in place, if you don't use it right, and if you don't have your business set up right, you're putting yourself at high risk of churning out, right? So now we have this new team, and this is actually maybe an exclusive announcement here because we just started this, it's called Growth Services. It's a new team in our company, and we'll help you get it set up on the software and do all the onboarding and stuff just like we always have, and better than ever, frankly, right now. But now you can actually get a growth coach to be with you to say, here's how to use JobNimbus in conjunction with what you're doing with your business to take yourself to another level and fix these problems. So basically like having a mentor that tells you how to use JobNimbus to the fullest and how to run your business in the way that you're going. We have so much data. We know exactly which roofing companies make the most money and why, and what systems they're using. Go and help you implement those things and give you advice on how to do it. So we really want to solve this problem.
so you're losing most of your clients to failure, pretty much.
Yeah, they don't run their cash flow very well.
How many do you lose per year, if you have a number? Are you talking about hundreds? Are you talking about thousands?
To going out of business?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, it's in the hundreds for sure. Yeah.
Do you see a lot of renaming businesses? Like someone calls you, say, change, and what I'm asking about is companies who maybe file a bankruptcy, starting over with a new name.
Yep, we
Does
see
happen?
that. Or the partners, one
Split.
gets rid and the other one keeps going. Another one that's really common is to see people add more stuff to their name. So it'd be Bob's Roofing one year, and then the next year it's Bob's Roofing and Solar, like trying to figure out ways to get more margin and more trades into the mix, right? So we see that a lot.
Okay, very cool. Let's talk about integrations. How many integrations you offer now? What are the hardest integrations that you're dealing with?
I don't think we have an accurate count at this point, because with our public API, we're finding out about people who have come and integrated with us without us even knowing.
Sure.
Right. But we have a few
More
dozen
than 30 when I ran the number a while back.
that are well known.
That are pretty significant ones that
Right.
you'd heard of,
Yeah.
And there's probably another 20 to 50 that are ones we don't even, really
Right.
have much interaction with at all. Hardest one,
QuickBooks.
by far.
Why?
So much data and so many details, and we support a two-way sync so that data can go both to QuickBooks from JobNimbus or from QuickBooks. From JobNimbus to QuickBooks or from QuickBooks to JobNimbus as you make changes in either system. And it can just be complex to manage those mappings and those changes and when they can occur. So yeah, it's definitely very complex.
I'll
We spend a lot
add
of
one
time
other
on it.
thing. It's customers' accounting data, their financial data. It can't be wrong. You
Yep.
can't mess it up.
Right.
So we have to do extra checks and extra coding to make sure that nothing. I mean, if you sync with Company Cam and one photo goes over in the wrong order or whatever, it's not the end of the world. You mess up somebody's ARR, it's the end of the world, you know. So
Well, let's talk. This is big for me, and this is, you're not gonna like it, but I have been teaching people not to integrate with QuickBooks for that reason. And the reason I do that, because I personally know many business owners who went through nightmares and almost filed bankruptcies because not only with the JobNimbus, but with Acculinks.
I was gonna say, not with our product probably.
So
Yeah.
the problem with this, well, what we had, I have very, very knowledgeable accountant 3 years ago, right in the beginning when we were setting up JobNimbus, and we could not figure it out. It was messing up our reports on a regular basis, like syncing. Something was always a little bit off, and I had like the best of the best accountant in-house who like always give me like the best reports, always tells me like, Dmitry, you have $400,000 in the bank right now, but in reality you only have 120,000, like to the penny. Like always, like, Dmitry, don't count on this number, count on this number, right? Now with the JobNimbus, it just like we didn't like the sync, and she told me it's risky, you know, like data goes there, here, like that. Anyway, because I've seen so many failures, I pretty much, like what we did, we trained all our sales guys, like all my financial data is here, all my customer service and team data is here. Like anything with a job, if I have any questions about any job, I just open both of them, and I'll get answer on any financial question that I might have here on the, you know, who messed up. You know, if homeowner called me and said, Dmitry, you overcharged me. Well, it's here. It's QuickBooks. If someone didn't follow up or didn't tell them when materials are coming, it's here, right? So you have two data, and it's very easy for me to go between two. So for me, it's no-brainer, but it's bulletproof. Nobody can mess up anything. You know, I always know how much money I have, and I always know how to manage my team. How do you guarantee that those mistakes will not happen with a sync? Like you said, with the company, it's not like managing pictures. It's accounts receivables, payables, and it goes both ways. So for me, all my money is online, and they don't even talk. For me, I don't even need JobNimbus to tell me anything about my money or my transaction on the job. It just,
You're definitely the minority on that. Most of our, in fact, the most used integration that we have is QuickBooks.
QuickBooks.
Yeah, and it's really popular, and we've put a lot of time into it. You know, since you've done that, actually, we've done a whole rev on it, where we added a bunch more error handling and new features to it. And then we also hired a bunch of QuickBooks accountants that were experts.
so you have someone here.
They're
full-time.
here full time.
How many people do you have who just manage QuickBooks?
4 right now that just manage QuickBooks.
Wow.
Yeah. And one of those is doing a lot of support tickets when people have questions about QuickBooks, and the other 3 do setups of customers. So now instead, it used to be in the old days, like when you were doing it, you'd say, here's the QuickBooks sync, here's some tutorials, go figure it out, and call support if you have problems. Now it's like, no, do not set this up on your own. We can tell you how to do it in the way that won't mess up anything. We know exactly what the pitfalls are. Let's talk, let me look at your accounting system first. Let me look at your QuickBooks. Okay, you guys don't have this set up right. Let's fix this first. Okay, now we'll turn on the sync with you. Now we'll fix all the errors.
So you're telling
it's
me
so much better.
It's
Yeah.
bulletproof.
I don't know. I just haven't heard of any customer having any problem with data getting messed up in years now.
So
you know?
yeah,
Right.
a long time ago, you know, we have, when you sync JobNimbus with QuickBooks, we'll actually display a list. Hey, this is a record, we're gonna link with this record. We give you a side-by-side comparison of everything, right? Where some people got in trouble is they wouldn't read that, right? They have their settings weird on QuickBooks. Some people do really weird things in their QuickBooks. They map things really funky.
Yeah, like the first name is in the address field or whatever.
And then they go to that screen and just yes. They're not following instructions, and they end up with messed up data, right? So we shut that down and said, okay, we're gonna hold their hand as you go through it, and like.
I might give it a try again because, like I said, I took a recommendation of my accountant who I really respect, and I mean the entire team. Like she showed me few things how it would show one way here, another way here, and I'm like, I don't think I was comfortable with it. For me, data is data, numbers don't lie. I don't want to mess it up. I've been in trouble many times where I have sales guys go into QuickBooks and record something paid when it wasn't paid. Like some weird stuff. They shouldn't be even able to do that.
And you can block that now.
No, exactly.
So,
but like little things like that.
Oh yeah.
It's like, data is data, and all our tickets are pretty big. So you do one discount, you do one weird. I mean, the industry.
Yeah.
There's so many shadiness.
Oh, I know. we have a lot of checks and balances now in place. I feel really confident right now, and I think the proof is in the pudding. Honestly, like seeing that number of customers using it on a daily basis, having a good experience with it, gives me a lot of confidence that it's working well for them.
You convinced me. I'm going to try it again.
Good.
What sales reps can do and cannot do as users? Because one of the things I see is happening is, like sales guy wants to quit or quits shady. When he takes a whole bunch of leads from the company, how business owner who uses JobNimbus can prevent it, or like for me personally, if I even see anything, like immediately you suspend him.
Yep.
But what sales guys can do, how can you help business owner to have more leverage in business? I guess
So
protecting data and stuff.
yeah, we have a great permission system that you can kind of lock down your users so that they only have access to do the things that you want them to do. Maybe you don't want them to be able to. A few minutes ago, we talked about how we don't hold your data hostage. You can run a report and export it all. You can block certain users from exporting all your data and leave that just to your admins, right? Or from deleting your data, or from those kinds of things. So you can control that and help them to just see what they need to see to do their job.
I would turn on 2 permissions right away for almost any sales guy. Number one, I would block them from downloading any reports or any data out of the system. So if they ever want to be shady and steal all the leads that they have or something, they can't. They can't even. They'd have to manually type each lead in somewhere else. Get them out of the system.
Screenshot it.
Yeah, which would be really
One at
hard
a
to
time,
do. To
yeah.
show everything on. And the second thing I would do is block them from being able to move anything into production unless they have all their paperwork done on it. Especially for insurance jobs, this is a huge problem where they really want to get their commission, so they just throw it over to production. It doesn't have the signed contract, doesn't have the ACV check, like whatever. It just doesn't have stuff done. And I would block that and say you had to have all these things done in JobNimbus before you could move it to this step. There's a lot of other things you can do too, but that's 2 that I see are really common that you should have set up.
I see a big trend, when sales guy leaves, he usually, like I have a couple students right now, like business owner would call me, Dimitri, what do I do? This guy just quit. We were supposed to be partners. He has like 25 leads. And like he tells me that I owe him $20,000 and what do I do? And I'm like, well, do you have it in JobNimbus? Do you have it written? Like, do you have it documented? So, like those triggers, those permissions. Like, I want to be like 5 tips, which you must have set up in your JobNimbus from the day one. It's like, hey, if you're the business owner, watch this video, number 1, number 2, number 3, because people don't realize. Like actually, Noble Roofing is one of the students.
Oh yeah.
So Noble, like his owner, just right, like his partner, it just happened to him.
Oh no.
And it's a brand new company.
Yeah.
So we did a class in Dallas 8 months ago. They were like 2 months in business, and all of a sudden they started doing really well. You're talking about like many jobs, like 3-4 jobs per week. And then they have a theft. Somebody broke in, he stole like iPad and a whole bunch of stuff from him. And now he's going through this. I'm like, welcome to the roofing industry.
What a mess.
You're a big target. Everybody knows you have stuff, you have tools, right? But he's going through that. He calls me, he's like, Dimitri, it's a nightmare. I don't know what to do. Because what's happening is if they're not prepared, we trust people, we're naive, we're like, oh, people are not going to do it for me. And then once 2-3 people screw you, now you're putting it in place, but it's too late. You already lost $100,000 on the first year in business.
Yeah, exactly, when it hurts the most. Yeah.
So I want to do content to help people in the first year in business to set it up before it happens to them. What advice would you give to someone starting brand new who is not tech savvy with the JobNimbus?
Let us help you.
Let us help you.
Yeah, I mean, they've got to become tech savvy at some point. You know, their competition is going to be tech savvy. Invest the time to learn the tools to help you succeed, because otherwise you're just going to crash.
Love it. Become tech savvy. It's just common. There's no way around it. Love it.
Demographics are kind of on our side on this, because as the younger people are starting to get into roofing, they're more used to using an app, trying to solve problems with technology, and it's a much smoother transition for them too. You know, so I think that's the way of the future. Just get on board, and you'll make a lot more money that way.
So weird how little kids are adapted to technology. I
Yes,
have
make it up.
4-year-old, like he would take this Apple Watch, and he would go in and he's like, Daddy, I want to see the weather. I'm like, how do you know the weather? And he will go in the cloud and then grab the weather, and I'm like, who is this guy? Like, you're 4, yeah. And he will do stuff on my wife's phone that my wife cannot figure out later how to undo it. Like, how did you get in here? And pictures, it's amazing.
I'll add to that I think the number one compliment we get from our users, our customers, is that we're simple. Simpler than other systems they've tried. So I would say I'd want to encourage them to don't be afraid. Give it a shot, because it's easier than you think.
You mentioned that you have about 30 integrations or so. Would you say that some roofers have too many tools or too many subscriptions out there?
Yes. We get a lot of people coming to us who say, like, oh man, I'm using this and this and this, and I got this thing for my quoting, and I got this for this, and actually, when I got on JobNimbus, I could get rid of half that stuff. Now, what we'd love it to be is at some point you can say, I get rid of 90% of that stuff, you know?
How many do you recommend? How many like must-haves in your opinion? Because if you know me, I'm a minimalist.
Yeah.
We have like 3, I think, like JobNimbus, QuickBooks, Company Cam. I don't know.
There is a cost to every system you add, you know, in terms of training, in terms of uptime and usage, and of course the cost of actually paying for the system, right? So I would always recommend going on the lower end of that scale. Most customers that I see being really successful at JobNimbus usually have about 3 to 5 integrations turned on, you know.
So if you guys have more than 3 to 5, comment below how many you have, or maybe it's time for you just to stop, clear one day, and go through all your subscriptions, maybe cancel half of them. My theory with all the subscription and tools in general, that they overwhelm our brains.
Yeah.
Like, and it comes from me, like from my trading days, like when I was in trading days. I was not in trading. Days where I was in trades. Like when I had a flooring business, almost every month I would buy a brand new tool. And then I noticed in my performance, I was super fast. In the beginning, I had like 3-4 tools, and my average speed is 500, 600 square feet a day. But then you have, you know, $2,000 worth of tools, and you go to the door and you have 5 tools to cut a door jamb. You have actual jam cutter, you have a sawzall, you have regular saw, you have a Dremel, right? And your brain freezes on you. Like, what do I grab to get that? Back in the day, you have one tool, you know, one hammer, one this, and yes, each tool's, you know, made for specific, you know, application. But then when you have 5 of them, you can't function anymore. Same happening in sales now. Same happening in the roofing. So sales guy arrives, like, do I get Eagle View or do I sketch it in iRoofing? Mm-hmm. Right? Why do you have 2? Are you using 2? Or, right? So you have 2, and each one of them has a purpose. What if you have 5? Because I see guys, you know, there's Roof Scope, there's iRoofing, there's Roofer, there's Roof Orders. You have 4 measurement apps.
Yeah, right.
Like, why do you need 4 measurement apps? figure out your business, scale to one of the best of the best, use it by default. Our brains are,
Yeah.
freeze all the time, and then we can't function.
I agree with that. We have a lot of integrations because customers want the choice and we want to give it to them. So, even some people say, like, I know that JobNimbus can take photos and it works great and everything, but I love Company Cam. I love the way it works. And great, we love that you have that choice and do that. But I think that your advice around, like, think about every system that you have and really ask whether you need to have that or you could use something else, even if it's not quite as fully featured, that actually gets the job done and makes it less complex, right?
What's your number one app that everybody's using? Like our most popular integration or
QuickBooks is number
is number one.
QuickBooks?
Yeah.
Company Cam's pretty
Company
popular.
Cam.
Company Cam maybe, yeah, it would do number 2 or number 3 for sure.
Yeah.
Eagle View's really popular. Yeah. Everybody loves getting their Eagle View set up in there. It just depends. Some, like Eagle View has been with us a lot longer as a partner than some of these other ones. So over time that may change, but the longer you've been around, the more customers you're going to have join with us, I think.
What's the newest feature JobNimbus added recently? Latest.
Can we talk about the one that's coming?
Yeah, the one we're about to go into beta with is digital signatures. So we've been working on that for some time, and it's getting close to beta here. So you'll be able to see some pretty cool changes with that.
See, I have signature in my online QuickBooks. I don't need integration with the JobNimbus. I already have it.
Yeah. Well, that's what we found. A bunch of customers are using DocuSign, and we're going, we can do that in JobNimbus, and we can do it for any document.
And you don't need it.
Then it's saving a bunch of money and one less system you have to worry about.
Well,
I don't have to pay for DocuSign too.
But if I have it in QuickBooks, do you need it? Because if they sign my estimate in QuickBooks, it's still going to be integrated in JobNimbus, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the data will sync over. Yeah. A lot of people like the customization you can do in the JobNimbus estimate, make it look more like your brand and everything.
I have one, just recently one of my students called me, and I have a video on signatures. So apparently you cannot do it on the desktop, so it's only phone or iPad. So you open Estimate and there's a little box in the left corner, so you sign as accepted. Been doing it since the beginning, like 6 years ago, right? So I made a video about it, and this student called me 11 o'clock at night.
Wow.
So, well, I was available. He texted me, I called him right away. I think I was traveling or something. So I called him back, and I told him that, he said he can't figure out it doesn't work. So I'm like, no, it works. He's like, no, I can't. So he called QuickBooks customer support. They couldn't figure it out. QuickBooks told him they don't have that feature. You can't sign on mobile. And I'm like, what the heck? And then the very next day I figured it out. So if you open in the browser QuickBooks, you don't have the feature. So you have to use it in an app. So I called him back right away. I said, dude, you have to download the app. And pretty much I gave him answer that QuickBooks couldn't give him. So I taught him something that QuickBooks could not figure it out. Like QuickBooks support officially did not give my student answer, and I did. I'm proud of it. But it's a little things like that, right?
Yeah.
So when you're in business, you know the ins and outs. And I remember how cool it was, because if my iPad would die 5 years ago, I would just take a phone, like, here's your estimate. I was paperless, and I have a whole bunch of employees printing emails. 5 years later, how do you deal? My last question is, how do you deal with the resistance of training? You get someone and people just don't want to learn. Or business owner gets on it, but their employees resist, the change, and they don't want to get in it. And then sooner or later, you see that, hey, this guy's paying for 7 users, and 5 of them don't even log in.
Yep.
What's your tips for the business owners, or how to train JobNimbus within the company? I know I went through it. You sign up, you have a whole bunch of users, you're paying for them, and then some guys never log in, they don't want to do it. Obviously, it's management issue, but
some of it is, I think if you just try to push and tell people to do something, it just doesn't connect. They don't see the value, right? So some of it is salesmanship. You got to sell them on the vision and the value and how it's going to help them in their lives, right? And we found that helps our team a lot.
And then start simple. right? Don't try and enforce the whole system and the whole process onto them at once. Just give them a small win. Find something, what's their value? What are they going to get out of using the tool? Have them start there so that they can start, getting benefit as quickly as possible, and then work them in further.
The only way you can really make money with JobNimbus is to get everybody using it, because then you get the visibility, accountability, all these
Right.
cool things that come with it, right? So if you have some people not following directions, it's not going to give you the value as a business owner. So you got to figure out a way to get those people on it, and that might even be, sometimes it's, look, you don't get your commission unless it didn't happen at JobNimbus, it didn't happen at all. And then suddenly the sales guys go, okay, fine, I'll use it. And then they go, actually, I kind of like this. It's good,
I love how you said it. It's actually, I've been saying it for 5 years now in my business. Even if I'm sitting here with you and say, hey, go pull that permit, I still have to go and log in that call, like, hey, pull the permit, create a task for you. And I tell them all the time, if it's not in JobNimbus, it never happens. In my word against your word. We only have one employee over the years who resisted, and I figured it out. It was new to me. So we have Chris. He's our supplementer, and when he came on board 3 years ago, he just wanted to have leverage, and I didn't understand in the beginning. So I think it was job security for him, because we were asking him to log in phone calls with adjusters. So like, Chris, entire team, your sales rep who sold the job, he needs to know where you're on a claim, because when customer calls like, hey, where are you guys, I gave you a check 2 months ago, right? So we can't start the job until we negotiate with insurance. Well, this guy calls insurance adjusters regularly, but he would not create a note in JobNimbus who he spoke with, what did the adjuster say, and then I figured it out. It was job security. He did not trust us. He thought that if he puts all his numbers and everything,
you just fire him.
we'll fire him and
Yeah.
we don't need it, which happens a lot in our industry
Yeah.
with the sales guys, right? So, or like supplementer, you go and negotiate a whole bunch of claims, I let you go, all your commissions, now I just finish those calls,
Yeah.
collect the checks, I don't need you. He was afraid of that. He'd been in the industry for 12 years. Now he documents absolutely everything to the penny, spoke with this person, this check.
How'd you get him to change? How'd you build that relationship of trust?
I think he realized that we run things differently. Like, I think
That's a culture thing, right?
it's a culture. Once he realized that he can't worry about his job. I sat down with him like, Chris, I need you. Like, he didn't understand that we're there for the long term. He thought it's just like 1-2 years we're gonna close doors or something. I'm like, Chris, look around. You cannot find one person in this town, I own money. And he knew it. He realized now he's my biggest advocate. When sales rep comes in or we hire a person, I see him talking to them. It's like, man, Alex here for 3 years. That guy's here for 4 years. I've been here since 2017. Don't worry about, you will always get paid. Because in the roofing business it's so common, but 3 years ago I didn't understand. Like, I'm an honest guy. I don't know how to shorten sales rep, but he's seen it probably 5 times before him. Right, so he's like, no, I'm not putting notes in JobNimbus about everything I do. Like, you're gonna replace me.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to replace you. And I told him, here's what I told him. I think that's what changed everything. We sat down and I said, Chris, I hired you in December. I have 4 claims when I hired you. He asked a really big salary, and I said, I gave you the salary in the winter time. I was losing money for 6 months. Since I hired you. For the first 6 months, you did not make me $1, and you know it. Why do you think I will let you go if you create few more notes in JobNimbus?
Right.
I took a huge step of faith just hiring you, bringing you on the team, not to let you go later to replace you over a couple notes. And I think once we had that conversation, it wasn't easy, but it was breaking point, and now he's one of the best employees.
So fix the culture if you don't have that kind of culture, and 2, be really transparent. It sounds like that's what causes trust, right? So if anybody's having this problem with your team member, it might be this exact issue, and you're probably not being transparent enough. You probably don't have a culture that makes them feel safe there.
And I feel like if sales guys are not committing for the long term, if they come to, and I see a lot in our industry, they come in, they're like, I'll work here 1 season. Like, hell just happened. Like, I'll just work it,
right.
and they already have their next move figured out. So now, why would they learn so much and put all the stress on them, like to figure out this JobNimbus or whatever, like QuickBooks, all this process, when they're only there for reach
4
fast.
months or whatever,
Yep. So I think people who wants to stay, but you have to sell them vision. You have to sell them their potential in 5 years.
With Chris, did he become more valuable to you once he started using JobNimbus?
Oh, absolutely. Well, he got promoted pretty much, and absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
So it pretty much, we told him, if you're not gonna do it, we're gonna let you go.
Sure.
This is your job security. It's actually opposite.
So there was a risk-reward issue.
Well, it was opposite. So he thought that if I'm gonna put everything in JobNimbus, they're gonna get rid of me. We told him it's opposite. If you're not gonna put it in, we're gonna let you go.
Yep.
But actually, what I had to do, I put it in a contract. I redrafted his contract completely. We took I remember it was about 2 years ago. We took 2 weeks off. I said, right now you don't have a job. We have to renegotiate our contract.
So you set clear expectations.
Yes, I put everything in writing what I want from him.
That's so rare, by the way.
I
More
guaranteed
people need to do
I
that.
guaranteed his pay, everything. And then when he came back and I said, when you come back, you'll have to sign this because I want to make sure that you're here for long term, and I want you to be sure that we're not going to screw you if you do it. So we have to renegotiate, which is, like it was bonus structure, it was how much he's going to get paid, all of that. But it was already part of the deal. We needed to do that.
It was the right thing to do.
Yep.
And it rewarded in the end. It was way
For both of you, right? Now he's
Yeah.
higher performing.
But I see a lot of, our industry is crazy because there's a lot of moving parts. Like I just interviewed sales rep. I call him serial hitman, door-to-door hitman. So what he does, he travels. He told me during the interview, I have this special set of skills, right?
Oh boy, here we go.
So what he does, he just it just hailed in Minneapolis. So he calls the business owner. He said, "I want a car. I want this bonus. I want this." But he will come in and in 90 days, will sell $1.5 million.
Wow.
And then it will hail here. He will come here sell, right? And he's very famous on Facebook in sales circles, so everybody knows him. Some business owners are careful of him, like, dude, I can't hire you because you're posting your everywhere you go. So if I hire you now and then 3 months later in Minneapolis, it's gonna hurt me.
Yeah,
He's
no,
like, I'm
good.
sorry, this is who I am. So, but his value proposition is, I'm gonna come, I'm gonna sell, I'm gonna go elsewhere. But he follows the process. So I respect him. But this is our industry.
Yeah.
Everybody is doing what's good for them, and not always what's good for the company or long term.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of storm chasers are settling for that
Yeah.
because they're also there for the short term.
Yeah.
So you have sales guys settling, business owners settling, and who's suffering? A lot of times it's homeowners. And I feel like if we focus on our cities, I told many storm chasers, I said, if you would put all your energy that you put right now every year chasing storms in your own town, you'll be freaking a leader. You'll be #1 player in 5 years.
Yeah.
But what they do is they chase easy money, but I feel like everything else suffers. Short term. But then forget about JobNimbus when storm hits, right?
Yeah. One of our sales reps says something that I think is cool. He says, I meet a lot of roofers every day, but I very rarely meet a businessman. And that's the problem, is that they don't, if you want to build something that matters, that's going to go a long ways, that's going to be something that you could hand off to your kids one day, or that's going to make an impact in your local community, you can't dick around with that stuff. You got to be serious. You got to run a business the right way, right? So a lot of that nonsense that goes on in the industry, we're trying to change that for the better and get people to think about the longer term. Because that's who the real players are out here.
There's only 2 reasons to be in business. Sell it, pass it to your kids.
Yep.
There's no other. If you're in business to make money, close it right now and do something else. I mean, it's just not worth it. And that's why we have suicide rate up, depression rate up, divorce rate up, everything is up.
Yep.
Nobody's happy. Look at all of the storm chasers that you know, and how many of them still have families, don't have drug issues.
It's a rough.
It's very rough. I mean, we have people. committing suicide or dying in hotel rooms at our conventions. Like literally, overdose during the conference for roofers.
Yeah.
That's a reputation for you.
We're going to change that. We are changing that. Like, that's your company, that's our company, that's what we're all about. We think we're really making a big positive impact in the world right
I agree. We have to stay within communities, not chasing money. Invest in your process, guys. Do what's right. Write down the plan for the next 3-5 years. Don't be distracted by small storms, 100 miles, 200 miles away from you. I think reward is there.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for your time. It was amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. It's great.